Namaste, bonjour. My name is Nikita Singla. I'm an international trade, logistics and inclusion specialist. I'm based in Delhi and I'm a non-resident fellow with Carnegie in Washington, DC.
नमस्ते, मेरा नाम मैथियास है और मैं डिप्यूटी जनरल मैनेजर हूँ एपीओ पुणे में।
Hi, my name is Anahita Bakshi. I work at ACT Grants, where I lead the climate tech investment vertical.
नमस्ते, मेरा नाम विक्टर है। मैं मुंबई भारत में टोटल एनर्जीज के लिए काम करता हूँ और मैं एकेडमिक पार्टनरशिप के डेवलपमेंट पर काम करता हूँ।
Hello, Namaste, bonjour. My name is Tanya Singla and I'm an international disputes lawyer. I help companies, governments and institutions resolve large-scale and complex commercial disputes through international arbitration, litigation and mediation.
Namaste, bonjour. I'm Sanjoli Baveja, Group Internal Control Manager with Pernod Ricard headquarters in France. I have been living in Paris since almost 11 years and I'm originally from New Delhi in India. Previously, I also worked with EY as Senior Manager in External Audit.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Hugo Armand et je suis directeur technique chez ATS India à Pune.
Bonjour, hello and namaskar. My name is Pratik Bhide and I am the Managing Director of Urgo Medical's operations in India.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Yesha Oza, je suis analyste à ESG chez Zero Emissions World.
Bonjour, je suis Vinny Kumar, je suis Senior Manager chez EY et je travaille sur tout ce qui est offre bancaire, asset management, paiement et globalement sur la transformation des entreprises.
Hi, my name is Gaurav Daga and I'm Associate Vice President at Industries Department, Government of Tamil Nadu.
Bonsoir, vanakkam. My name is Ridhima Kanapan and I'm the Chief of Staff to the CEO of the Fashion Pact, a global organization working to reduce the environmental impact of the textile industry.
Hello and bonjour to my CCIFI colleagues. My name is Niranjan and I work for AXA Climate as an expert manager in Paris.
Namaskar, bonjour. My name is Pauline Laravoire. I come from Paris and I live in Kolkata. And I am the Sustainability Director at Techno India Group.
Hi, my name is Manaswini Hariharan and I am the Executive Director for the Urban Land Institute in India.
Hello everyone, my name is Nadra Galmish. I'm a business developer for the public sector Dassault System.
Bonjour à tous, je m'appelle Prabhat. Je suis consultant stratégie pour Zomato à New Delhi.
Hello, my name is Anna and I'm currently working at the French Ministry of Economics and Finances on a public policy called Je choisis la French Tech that aims to double the purchases from startups by corporates and administrations by 2027.
Je m'appelle Santosh, je suis le directeur et partenaire JV de Preciamon. Il s'agit d'un JV dont français prospère depuis 31 ans.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Lise Mathis, je suis ingénieure système fluide chez EDF et je travaille sur les projets de nouveaux réacteurs nucléaires à l'export.
The Chambre de commerce et d'industrie franco-indienne, or CCIFI, is a non-profit organization that has been enhancing Franco-Indian relations for over 4 decades now. Since 1983, CCIFI has been a trusted partner for businesses, fostering bilateral growth and helping bridge cultural and economic ties between both countries. Their mission is simple yet impactful, building a stronger shared future between France and India.
Hello, I'm very happy to talk about one of CCIFI's unique initiatives, which is the Young Talents Program, which is now in its second year. The Young Talents Program brings together 10 young professionals from India and 10 young professionals from France all together on a common platform, with many of us feeling at home in both India and France. And thus this gives us a chance to network with each other and deepen and strengthen the socio-cultural and economic ties between France and India. And speaking of networking, I'm pleased to introduce alongside Ridhima the 20 people who are part of 2024 Young Talents Program. Each of us comes from a different thought perspective, different background, different experiences and industry, and thus we form a bunch of people who can be very interesting to hang out with. Introducing 2024 Young Talents. The beauty of this program no doubt lies in its collaborative spirit. The 20 of us get a chance to learn from each other and also from the many inspiring leaders we are meeting along the course of this program. And thus I really hope that the networks we make today are going to be there not only for the short term but for many years to come between India and France.
This year, we've taken on an ambitious project, exploring the career paths of French and Indian executives at leading global companies. The study is more than just research. It's about understanding the cultural and managerial differences that shape these journeys, while also finding ways to collaborate more effectively. By working in binational teams, we've had the privilege of conducting interviews and learning directly from these CEOs. What makes this experience rewarding is that it doesn't end with a report. It's the beginning of deeper collaboration, understanding, and lasting connections across borders. As we prepare to present our findings, we hope to showcase the unique strengths of Franco-Indian partnerships and inspire the next generation of leaders to continue building on this foundation.
Hi Vinu, thank you so much for accepting to do this interview. This interview, it comes in the framework of the French-Indian Young Talent Program, which is an initiative of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry France-India.
Thank you so much, Binu, for doing this with us. I think before we get started and I pass it on to Binu, let me just do a quick introduction for Binu. Binu has been a former chief people officer at Yum Restaurants. The first time I got to know, I had to actually look it up. What does a chief people officer really do? And then I thought this job is so exciting. And she is a global HR leader and focuses on promoting culture, diversity, and inclusion with a track record of enabling other organizations to become and be recognized as great places to work. She has over 30 years of leadership experience in Fortune 500 and multinational organizations, and her passion about creating a diverse and inclusive work culture and enabling businesses to grow is why we are having this conversation. So just a little bit of, about Binu for our audience. And Binu, before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey towards becoming a global HR leader?
I think thanks to both of you. What can I say? I would say that I believe that when you have a clear goal and a vision that you're very passionate about, I truly believe that the universe conspires in helping you achieve it. You know, we come from a country in India which is so diverse. So I think that's something we've grown up with. So you can't imagine, I remember when I traveled internationally for the first time, you actually miss the chaos, the diversity that you're so used to. And along with that, I think it's almost like if you're diverse, you have to be inclusive if you really want to, leverage the diversity to your advantage. Are you ready for the little story? I had just joined Yum after working for 25 plus years in an IT industry. So imagine from an IT company, you suddenly move to a fast food, KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell kind of an organization where the culture is different. The most interesting conversation I had was with the CEO, the global CEO, who had come to see me and kind of welcomed me to the organization. And he said, I just want one problem to be solved. Attrition is a big problem for Yum. And I said, okay, how big can that problem be? Because having come from IT, attrition was like under 10%. He said 60%. I almost fell off the chair. And I said, wow, now that's a problem to resolve. And how the hell I'm going to go about doing it? I started digging in and I started talking to everybody. I went and met ex-leaders. I met leaders in the company. I spoke to everybody. And that's when I said, how about we get specially abled boys and girls to man this store? And they looked at me and, what's wrong with her? We're talking about attrition, what she's talking about. I said, why don't we see whether we can actually be more diverse and see if diversity and inclusion will solve our problem. And we went around doing a little research and we realized that actually that store was perfect for that. We went about, changing the store. We actually hired 50% specially able boys and girls. And you can't even imagine, that store still exists. It went down to 4% attrition. And customer service scores were like, how? I can't tell you, fantastic. And that kind of got us very excited. And we said, you know what? It's going to solve a hiring problem. It's going to solve an attrition problem. And guess what? We're giving back. So what better way to resolve this issue? And that's what started our journey, where every time we open stores, 1 out of every 10 store used to be managed 70% by specially abled. And I think, that is something which makes me feel very proud.
Thank you, Binu. This was so inspiring. It's a perfect example of how when leaders actually embrace innovation, how they inspire everyone to think outside the box.
Thank you very much for the more stories and anecdotes. To end the session, we wanted to ask you a couple of quick, simple questions. Are you more of a coffee person or a chai person?
Anything black, both chai and coffee.
Okay. And do you have any favorite place in Europe?
I would say Paris, Rome, and my last one which I fell in love with was Porto in Portugal.
So is this really the places that you like or the culture?
I think Paris, just the history, it's just lovely to go through all that. One has read so much, so I think for Paris, it's like going back, and reliving the history that you read in history books and in books otherwise. Rome, similar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Binu. Nikita, would you like to conclude and then we can end the session?
Though I must say, I do not want to end the session. I want to keep this going. But thank you so much, Binu. This was such an amazing conversation. I think both Matthias and I have learned so much from you, and so would our cohort. But I think before we leave, any last remark from you, Binu, for our cohort? We are, as Matthias said, we are 20 people, 10 from India, 10 from France. Budding leaders have different visions and ambitions about our, own leadership journey. So what would you like to say to our cohort?
I would say just go for the sky. There's nothing stopping you. The world's a much better place than when we were growing up. I think both men and women, you have far more opportunities. So I would say don't let the fact that you're diverse, you're different, it doesn't matter. That's actually the strength in today's world. Your being different is actually the edge that you have. So just live it up, enjoy it, and go for they say go big, I would say. Just fly hard.
Thank you so much, Binu. Thank you for making the time to do this conversation.
Thank you for the opportunity and the introduction. So, as you said, I'm heading today the ATS Group, which is a family-owned company. So it's a special structure. I started there as a kid, actually, working during my summer vacation as a helper on sites, and then later on during my study for some internships. And then later on, I started first as a fitter, then as a site manager, a project manager. This brought me far aboard. So I started actually in India, in Gurgaon, on a project by Hero Honda. And I had a lot of fun over there, learned a lot. Then I went to Brazil, from there to Mexico, from there to US, been spending a lot of time in China and Norway, and so on and so on. My first years of careers, I've been working as a project manager on different sites, and I have learned a lot. From there, I started as director for external activities, and then we had the opportunity in 2005 to start a setup in India. And as you said, Hugo, we are manufacturing in France and in India. We have a very similar manufacturing setup, same machinery, same equipment for the same components, which we can manufacture on both sides. This is one of our key success points in India. We sell European technology manufactured in India with at least partially Indian cost, but European quality.
So ATS Group has been operating in India for nearly 19 years now. As a French company, why did you decide at the time to set up operations in India?
So it's quite unusual for a mid-sized family-owned company to start such an adventure and so far from the headquarters. So usually big groups come to foreign countries with huge investment, advisors, high-level marketing strategies, top management, and they set up nicely and then try to do business. We did actually exactly the opposite. We started to do business and then we grew. and then we invested. So first we grew slowly and then very steeply because we brought something on the market that was not available. We didn't have money to invest, as I said, but we're eager to succeed. We bring an answer to our customer growth problem. You might know the situation in our stable European economy. So we could live with our position on our domestic and historic market in France or Germany, but if you want my opinion, there is no such thing as stability in business. It's either grow or decline. So we need to grow. So we knew that we might have a major role to play in Asia. So we started from scratch in Pune. I've been there along with my Lonely Planet in order to start business. And yeah, where should we start? So I contacted the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce. They gave me a few hints, a few contacts, specifically a French guy sitting in Pune. He gave me just 2-3 leads, like a realtor to find a flat and a headhunter to find our first employee. We got our first order just 3 weeks later. And the difference compared to most of our competitors is that we started from scratch. We started from nothing, just with a strong will, some references, and we invested the money we made. We didn't come and settled and then do business. We did business and then grew.
Tell us, what are the challenges you faced while setting up the team in India versus in France?
I just said, for the French, if you don't have 100% information input, they will not start solving the problem. If you don't have everything, you have nothing in their mind. In India, people will start very motivated and full throttle working on a task, maybe sometime without waiting for all the needed information, but very efficiently. You will manage to solve all the problems eventually with some jugaad and reach a very acceptable level fast, but maybe not to the expected 100% we might have in France. So the Indians, for the Indians, the French are slow and too precise and not willing to take risk. For the French, the Indians are fast but unprecise, but risk takers in business. So this is very different how to combine these two very different characteristics and way to work on a task. And if you don't force people to work a way they are not familiar with, it doesn't work out. We need to take the best out of both situations.
In your experience, which strategies have helped you to promote collaboration and trust within your teams in India and France?
So once you know these facts, that we have these two different, very different culture and mindset on a task, how to solve it. If we manage to combine this know-how in a very positive way, combining this culture, you can reach the moon. Once you consider that all have to learn humbly from each other and don't try to force people to work in an alien way, it raises the bar for everyone. It sounds so logical and an easy mindset, but this is precisely where I see many other Western companies failing badly in India. This combination, accepting the difference and working out of it, is something that is not easy for all.
One of the key of the success of ATS in India is the collaboration between the two teams and the trust. Yes. But now, as a leader, chairman of the group, how do you support your team so that they can achieve high performance?
To perform, you need to learn from one when good. This positive reference is fruitful, easy, comforting. Everyone goes for learning from what goes good. What is even more important in my views is to learn from mistakes, from big one, from small one, with the highest possible level of transparency. I can very handle bad news. That's okay, but I need to know. What is not acceptable is a hide and seek game and surprises the later stage. This is a bad calculation. Things always come to light earlier or later. This is toxic for the performance, and this has absolutely no room in our family company. If you make a mistake, it's okay, but report it as soon as you notice it. We'll stick all together and solve it together as a family. This is our mindset. So we try a lot of things, product, business model, and we sometimes fail. That happens. We need to say, business is not easy. If you try something, sometimes it grows. This is what we talk about. Sometimes it fails. That happens as much as success. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. This is what we say. But provided you accept and analyze the mistake wisely and systematically. So no one should be afraid of trying something because it may not succeed completely. And in our company, I need everyone on board more willing to do good than afraid of doing anything wrong. It's a simple positive attitude where innovation and personal initiative of any kind has a fruitful soil. This is a matter of success.
We have one last question we would like to ask you with Tanya. Can you share some advice for the young leaders in our cohort?
Something very simple. Go for it. Don't be shy. Don't hesitate. If you think you have a great idea, it's probably a great idea. Go for it. I mostly say a courageous walking man always goes further than a sitting genius. And if on top of courage, you are blessed by talent, come and work for us.
My name is Darshan Mehta, and I'm the founder and managing director of Reliance Brands.
The most effective communication strategies that you believe are relevant for inspiring and aligning teams with organizational goals, and especially also maintaining relationships with stakeholders?
I think the first, second, and third mantra there is just transparency and honesty, and we followed that, fairly scrupulously because it just comes naturally to us. It comes naturally to me as a leader because I founded the organizations. We call them rituals, but one of the rituals that I started was a fairly formalish town hall. I remember the first town hall when we were all of 40 people was in the office cafeteria. And thereafter we've had town halls in auditoriums, and now we have town halls with 2,000 people, all etc. But once a year, I get up and it's virtually a full day event. I speak, part one is transparently share about, the organization, what's happened, take a stock, and we are now across many verticals. We have grown quite fast, and we are quite, in some sense, a complex business, because we go from beauty to food to, of course, fashion, home, different categories. We have joint ventures, we have master franchisees, we have Italian partners, we have French partners, we have American partners. So it's quite a complex box. And then the second part of the town hall is what is generally known as Darshan Unplugged or DM Unplugged, and where, there's every question is a kosher question. Anyone from the audience and anyone who is not from the audience can write it. And always take on tough questions first, because if you address that, okay, then you've got a very wired talent who then has saying, okay, these thoughts are at peace, and I can go ahead for the rest of my life.
Speaking of internal communication, I think we have got your insights. We would like to ask a question about external communication with your customers. Since you are bringing a lot of luxury brands into India, how different do you think the marketing communications targeted to Indian customers would be from the Western customers who are already used to these brands?
We are in the business of creating desire, and communication plays. The desire works on a tripod of three things. One is the product itself creates desire, because you see something that is beautifully crafted, beautifully made, okay, and you see it in a window, you see a friend wearing it, and it creates desire, and say, I love what you're wearing, I love your eyewear, or I love the sunglasses, I wear the watch, all of that. The second part of how desire is created is the theater at the stores, especially for luxury. It's a very, very critical part of what we do. That's why brands like Vuitton, brands like Hermes spend a fortune in how the stores, the windows, and of course, and it's not just what we call the hardware of the stores. It's also the software, the human theater, how you are welcomed, the pride with which you walk out with a Xenia bag. In fact, how that person will walk you to the door and only then hand over the bag to you. So there's what we call the human theater. But all of that is the second part of creating desire. And the third leg of creating desire is communication. Okay. And then saying, how do you create desire through communication to the outside world, especially your customers. Having said that, this word about transparency, okay, also cuts through an honesty, because today, increasingly, if you talk about a product attribute or if you talk about brand attribute that is even marginally incorrect, okay, you might have heard the phrase greenwashing. A lot of people wanted to get into the bandwagon of sustainability. Be very careful, because if there is an iota of hyperbole or exaggeration, you'll be trolled.
No, for sure.
Correct. So the transparency cuts first to the core and saying don't say anything that is incorrect. Don't say anything that's not real. Okay, is the first point. Okay. And thereafter, okay, lot of brands, especially when you are in my space, which is you have brands which are discretionary spends. That means you don't really need that Dolce & Gabbana bag or whatever, etc. People try to create disruptive communication, because sure you want to disrupt because there's so much clutter in consumers' mind. People like yourselves, in different ways that or even you don't know, you are being bombarded with messaging. In that, okay, someone has to disrupt to stand out. But in that disruption process, again, there are examples of what not to do, because if you try to disrupt in any negative way, okay, that can come back to you.
Premium or luxury. Is there a way Indian brands can also find a way to be desired by foreign customers and by even Indian customers to the same level as Gucci's and Versace's are desired today?
I mean, Jaguar Land Rover, think about it. The maximum amount of cars sell in China. So if you look at consumption base, then it's a Chinese brand. It's manufactured in UK. So by that nature, it's an English brand. It's owned by an Indian company. Correct? So is it an Indian brand? Is Jaguar and Land Rover luxury? They're both luxury. So are those Indian brands? Are they English brands or are they Chinese brands? So the first thing is it's brands, and especially when they start transcending boundaries, and most of the things that you give examples to, okay, are not necessarily French or Italian. Yes, there's a French expertise. They were the world's first and remain the best couturiers, for instance. And when you think of haute couture, and they invented that, and made in Italy, that made in may have a. But honestly, there's a time where you look at a shirt and saying made in Italy, made in Japan, okay, less and less. People don't think that way. So that's my first answer to your question about geographical origins.
Okay, perfect. So Darshan, another aspect of our theme is also influence. And obviously, given that you've brought about 85 international brands, I hope the number is correct, since in a very limited time, since 2007, would you share an example or some, I would say, takeaways or insights of how you've leveraged your influence to drive organizational objectives? Obviously, you founded this, you had objectives, you had a vision, and obviously communication is key, definitely. Strategy is key, but it's also influence somewhere.
Cut to today, in the times that we are living in, you guys are living in, and building your careers, the world by and large is awash with money. Okay. Capital is no longer the differentiator. If you take that away from the table, the real differentiator between a successful and a not so successful organization is talent. So I started my career in capital crunch. We are now in a talent crunch, and we've been there for a while. Okay. So as a leader, whether I manage to bring 80 brands or the real number is more than 100, but whether I bring 100 brands or 50 brands and I do it in 10 years or 20 years, and how well they do, all of that, etc. These are outcomes of as examples of success. But what is in my control? What is the foundation? What is the soil that I set up so that these outcomes happen? It's about creating talent differentiation. And in that, in essence, and again, given the fact that we are in short time and we are talking about complex subjects, so the high level answer is two things. How do you pick the talent? Okay, is very, very, very critical, and we spend a lot of time because there is nothing like a bad employee. The whole idea is that we have every organization has a certain environment, which is a combination of the soil and the climate. Let's say I'm a temperate environment corporation. If I put a plant from a tropical environment, okay, maybe it will not bloom here. So talent acquisition is very important. Second is equally or even more important is how do you wire all that talent together? How do you create a cultural syntax, okay, of the organ? And leaders spend a long time, and that's the influence that they leave behind. It's a cultural syntax in which that talent is wired. My earlier boss, when I started my career, he used this very beautiful phrase, that ad agency which I was worked. He said, we are a magic box. We have created magic, but the magic is inside the box. Some people think that the magic is in their hands. The magicians, when they leave the box, find that there is no longer magic in their hands because the magic was inside the box, not in their hands.
Yeah, no, I see what you
And
mean.
my influence over the last 17 years is to create magic inside the box. If you manage to create that magic, okay, perpetually and consistently, then outcomes will happen. Then successful outcomes, the brands that you spoke about, happy partners, happy shareholders. We generally say we have 4 constituencies. We have employees, we have customers, we have shareholders, and we have also partners. These are my 4 constituencies. On all constituencies, we'll be happy, provided this magic inside the box. And that's my job, okay, because capital is available, okay. It's to then work on talent and, do all of that.
Did you observed a big culture gap between India and France way of working? And if yes, how do you manage these cultural differences?
Yeah, maybe start with the obvious thing. France and India are partners in trade, partners in the financial industry. You mentioned a global delivery center, but let's start with India is at the spearhead of many innovative and best practices that we see in the financial service industry. By size, and I would say by design, India players in the financial industry are among the biggest in the world. And I was mentioning technology. India banks can show and drive the path on very high-level technology proposition. In the insurance space, for example, I have seen India being at the forefront of using robots or drones in making sure that the insurance claim processes are automatized and best of breed. So my relationship with India is not only about delivery center, it's also about sharing with my fellow colleagues at EY India that we can know about each other trends and understand what are the best practice from each country and very well installed in their India-French relationship. Yes, there are cultural differences, of course, and that's great. We are 2 big countries coming from a wonderful and long history. We have our traditions, we have our way of living, we have way of working. And so it's important to know each other and share those differences. And I think the initiative that you have with the Chamber of Commerce is crucial to better know each other. And one of my first experience with a trainee in my French team from Indian origin.
You also mentioned in your previous responses that the thing that you always look for is building a long-term partnership or relationship with clients, and about the legacy that you want to leave behind for your colleagues. What are the values that you want to reinforce in your team, or how do you teach your colleagues to have those values and promote those legacy values that you want?
I would start by accountability. I'm very proud of having selected by my senior partners, was I was a young senior manager, and who told me, yes, we think you have the capability and the track record to become a partner. As soon as you are a partner, you change the way you are accountable. Because, of course, you are accountable towards your client, but suddenly you become accountable about the corporate. And you're accountable towards your people. And you're accountable also towards the external world, the society in general terms. And as a partner, you have to work with this accountability mindset for your peers in the partnership. So first and foremost, accountability. Second is respect. Respect. At EY, we are a big partnership, more than 15,000 partners across the world. And are we always friends with such a diverse partnership? Of course not. But respect is the fundamental value to make sure you're building this partnership to grow. And we talked about cultural differences with India, but we are very lucky to be in a global partnership with Americans, Asia people, African people. All these are different. Respect sits above all in all the relationship.
I think it's a great getaway to the next question that I want to ask you is, since we all have background in finance, we are obsessed with numbers, but how do you measure your leadership impact or your legacy beyond KPIs?
No, I get the question. And I'm smiling because Vinay and everybody knows that, yes, I put a stance on numbers. Yes, quantitative numbers help us define our performance in absolute and relative terms, and that's important. But figures don't tell everything. And figures needs interpretations, and figures needs additional KPIs, which I would not quote as qualitative, because when you say qualitative, you may hear, well, it's different, it's a bit pejorative, it's different from quantitative. It needs to be, financial KPIs need to be enhanced by other perspectives. Be people morale, and as we speak, we are launching our quarterly pulse survey, where we want to listen from our people how they feel in the company. Perspective from the client. It's important to also have, the words they use to describe how they feel we are serving them. And again, back to listening mode, it's very important to have their view beyond the financial impact we provide. Back to my point on long-term relationship, you need to know people and how they feel about you. And last but not least, how we can assess our impact beyond EY.
What advice would you give to young talents like us, who want to foster the bilateral relation between India and France, but also develop some leadership skills like you? What would be your advice on it?
So one advice is dare. I mean, the bilateral relationship between France and India is just obvious, and it will develop. And it's impossible that going forward with all the uncertainties of the geopolitical world, we do not continue to build this relationship. It will be complex. It will be sometimes slow to develop. And so it's important that you feel resilient and you dare.
I transitioned from chairman and CEO to chairman of Capgemini, which I still am, in 2000. And I have been a big promoter of Indian skills, and they now represent half of Capgemini workforce with more than 170,000 people there. India belongs to what we now call the Global South. But India is India in its own sense and proud of its history and its originality. And so is France. So that these are two countries that can enter into a constructive dialogue. All Delhi, science has been part of the Indian culture. So a government decided to invest in skilling the workforce and introducing them in information technology. That was at the origin of many Indian companies, and I repeat, I discovered Infosys Wipro more than 23 years ago. There are not that many countries that can combine cultivating their roots and culture and adopting a very future-oriented culture based on scientific progress, sending a satellite on the moon, and creating an incredible workforce in IT. In India, there is a passion. There is a passion because IT and the IT job have become a way to ensure family disruption, creation, wealth creation, and I discovered a wonderful appetite. And it was a wonderful discovery of a culture, and I repeat, I like that combination of a strong background, including some spiritual roots, and a very optimistic approach of the technology and the future. What possibly makes Capgemini different from the other is a cult for empowerment. We love very decentralized company with people feeling truly in charge. And if you want people to feel in charge, you need to trust them, to give your confidence in what they do, but then you need to select entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs have to be curious and watch their market. But you believe that they are in the market and they understand better the client demand than me in my headquarters in Paris. So the idea was to trust people once you have selected them, to feel empowered and go after their market based on their intelligence, beyond curiosity, their intelligence of what's going on. So you feed them with technology insights, you feed them with everything you can, but you rely on them and you trust them to understand what is needed locally. And that's the culture of the company. So the first point, just say, the founder of the company, Serge, declared English as the working language of the group in 1985. So at the time, there was not many French companies that embraced English as a work language, because he thought that was the business language, and that was a way to welcome everybody in the group culture. There is an appetite for Indian talent because they are global, because they represent a very fast-growing market, India and Asia. I have a special assignment by the French government to work on the Indian-French economic relationship, and we try to attract young Indian students in our universities in France. The second point, I repeat, France and India are two countries full of their culture. They try to be in solidarity. France is part of the European Union and will remain so, but we have a culture that we are trying to defend, and so are Indians. So I think there is a possibility to combine the two pride and the two appetite for the future to do things together. India exited the COVID period with a very strong momentum, in spite of the casualties and the difficult time we had together. I was very associated to that difficult period with our Indian colleagues, but the momentum, your growth rate, your population momentum, the arrival of many, many young people in the job market, the appetite for technology. So it's a very promising market. I try to convince French company that India is not one unified country. They have to address Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, UP differently. They are different culture. So let's not be naive and simplistic. If you land in Delhi, you're only not even halfway. You have done 25% of the journey to be effective in India. So I try to contribute. I'm very optimistic about India, and I'm extremely motivated to build further the French-Indian cooperation.
As a leader, how do you make sure your team can maintain resilience in the face of challenges and setbacks, whereas it is personal or in the professional environment, and at the same time to make sure that they maintain high levels of productivity?
Okay, fine, good. So when it comes to resilience, main point from my perspective is it's the communication, the transparency which we have to give to the team. So it's like a trust and transparency which we have to build within the team. So as I said, my team is not just one culture oriented. It's already now my team is having 18 different nationalities in my team. Of course, even though we are in 5 different countries with 18 different nationalities. Even my French team, in my French team, I'm having Russian, I'm having Moroccan, Algerian, Chinese, French, and Indian. So it's diversified. So we have to maintain a kind of I would say creating a well-being space to everyone. So we have to ensure that they are having a kind of well understanding about the objectives of the company, the top-down objectives. So it's been well communicated regularly to them, and ensure that we are also solving their problems when they have the problems, because we have a diversified work as a.
How are we making sure that there is a collaboration and peer support between the team members, right? They are supporting each other. They're clear with their objectives. That's one part, but how they are supporting each other and how they are collaborating with each other.
Okay, first, my point of view, very important is to be closer with them. Always be closer with them. We have multiple projects under my umbrella. I have a lot of different projects, but at least once in a week, I will go close to them. We have a kind of knowledge enhancement sessions regularly. That means twice in a week. No, sorry, once in 2 weeks. Once in 2 weeks, one small topic has been taken, and this particular person, he himself or she herself, prepares this topic and explains to the full team of myself. So that is a kind of special out of the working environment. We take this particular topic. The topic could be linked to the professional life. The topic could be linked also out of professional life. It could be something which is totally, for example, ChatGPT. Okay, is ChatGPT good for it? Good for our professional way? Okay, I have given this topic to one person. This person, okay, he himself understands what is this one. He discussed with many people and come back in this knowledge enhancement session. We call it as knowledge enhancement session, and he explains what is this, how to use it, how to use Gen AI, how to use. We have also chat at Renault also in Renault. How to use chat at Renault? What is the best difference between the chat at Renault versus Chat GPT versus Copilot? Okay, what is the ethical things which we have to follow also? What complaints we have to follow? So this is the explanation.
The experience of working in the Indian environment versus the French environment, because you have worked with Renault in both the countries. So any anecdote or any particular thought you can share on this?
2007, I was working with French team, French colleagues. Many of them are friends. But in 2016, when I came here, it's not. I will not say that I am a kind of success in a few months. Each and every time I learned new things for the French culture. First, myself, I speak about myself to adapt to the French culture. So here there are a lot of things which I can give examples. So here about decision making, for example, it's not same if I want to be in French culture versus Indian culture. But I don't want to compare only Franco-India. But as I am saying, I am working with different culture people. It's not only French and Indian, of course, but sometimes few needs like kind of practical decision making, very quick, agile, but others, I have some French colleagues who needs a kind of structured way, collaborative approach. And here, depending upon the team, depending upon the culture, depending upon the people who is working on the subjective. So here I change myself. So sometimes I go with the kind of data which is backed up, or sometimes I go with the kind of empowered team solutions.
What piece of advice, for us young professionals who aim to enhance bilateral relations between India and France, what piece of advice would you want to give us?
Take care of yourself on the health. Ensure that you are adjusting yourself in a different environment, mainly communication and the expectations what they have on you.
The theme of the interview for Santosh and I will be leading through change. So we'll all have to choose a team. So my question for you as a leader, how do you adapt your leadership style during time of significant change like this one? And how do you cope with your team?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me in this interview. I'm very honored to succeed to Luc Raymond in the exercise. Second, it's always a real pleasure to interact with young talents, and I'm delighted that in EDF we have so many talented people like yourself. So that's really nice to see, and I have the pleasure of interacting in this context. Third, I am a fundamental believer in the potential of the relationship between France and India for many, many reasons. It so happened that France is now, for the last 2 decades, has been significantly investing in this relationship. And I believe it will have a great future. This is partly related to my own origins, which are from Pondicherry, and also due to the fact that India, in its own right, given the richness of its culture and all the potential it's got in terms of capability development, represent a real hope for the future and contributing also to the stability of the world. And when we talk about nuclear, we have to think about all these things because nuclear stability, geostrategic concepts and considerations, they all come into play all together. So coming to your question now regarding the context of EDF and the different changes in our organization, I would say first of all that I have been in this company for 25 years now, and I've seen this company going through many phases of changes. Change is part of life, and it's part of company life, and the external world does move pretty quickly, and it's a positive sign of adaptation that the company organization changes to make sure it can cope with external events, as well as trying to meet its own ambitions and move the borders to a further level. And in the course of this discussion, this theme, moving the borders, trying to push the borders out, will be something you will see me repeat several times because that's fundamentally what makes me move and get into action. Okay. So in such context, adapting to this change for me, for even my team, I believe, for our department, is something necessary but also very natural. Building, on average, 1 reactor per decade, which is a very slow pace. Yes. Now, given what's in front of us, we have to build 2 2 reactors a year. That's the objective that our chairman has given the group. Here is the different governments involved in these decisions always have very clear objectives. Our first and foremost job is to make sure we understand very well the history, the background, the objectives, to make sure that we have the most adapted solution being proposed to these partner countries. It's important to understand that we do not have a client as is usually conceived. It's not one entity or one person. What we have is a bunch of stakeholders, actually. You will have within that some entity which is likely to be the future owner operator, who will be operating the plant that we are aiming to develop with them. And you will have the decision makers, which could be part of this entity, but also very likely being part of the government and the administration. Aligning all these players is the job of development, including through the negotiation of the contract and the signing of the contract. But you can imagine that, and this is absolutely necessary, trust is paramount in nuclear. You would know that in your own role, not only because of safety and all the safety requirements associated with it, but also because any nuclear power plant is there in the landscape for 100 years.
Yes.
And it's got to be, all of that has got to be built on solid foundations. And although trust is what usually people put in soft aspects, for us in nuclear, it's part of the hard aspects. We have to have the trust as a very solid foundation.
Okay, thank you for this insight. Very helpful for me because, I was part of the project, and when you do activities, you are on a straight line, and sometimes when people told you that you have to stop, it's a bit frustrating, but, that's...
I totally understand, because we are the ones giving the signal.
Here we are at the end of the CCIFI Young Talent Program Interview Series 2024. We have covered a multitude of matters of importance and pressing topics together, such as vision and leadership and strategy, innovation, sustainability, and so on. And it's been an incredibly inspiring journey. And I wanted, on behalf of all of the cohort, to thank Benedict and Himanshu and the whole chamber for giving us this opportunity to connect with such inspiring leaders. I think it would be safe and fair to conclude here that maybe we could consider France and India to be in sort of an arranged marriage together, where, yes, we are presented with challenges because of our differences, because of our diversity, especially in terms of culture and business practices. But at the end of the day, we have been able to make it very much of a functional relationship because we have been able to accept our differences and to really make and take the best out of both worlds by learning from each other and by really relying on each other's strengths, right? And so this is by creating and continuing to create collaborative bubbles and spaces for collaboration where talents from both sides can actually thrive and show their best, that we are certain that France and India have a brilliant collaborative future ahead. Thank you so much for listening until the end, and wishing you the best ahead.